There were plenty of injuries out of round one, but none were more disappointing than Dion Prestia.
Yeah, g'day, Josh. And it's a major problem, isn't it, for the Tigers now as they go into another season with the unknown about his body. It's been there before. It's been apparent before. They've been able to manage him and rehab him and nurse him to get back to each of the key periods of time where they've won premierships. But to go down yet again, with another soft tissue injury in the first minutes of the new season, there's a massive question mark over his return now. I mean, they don't have the confidence in putting him back in and knowing his body's going to be okay, and that's a major concern itself. And obviously, the unavailability right now poses a massive problem for a midfield that is already showing signs of not being able to keep up to speed with the absolute best in the competition. And an ageing forward line, which has been the case for some time. We've now got injuries into that part of the ground as well, with Jack Riewoldt and his thumb issue and what that means, and just general motivation issues across the board, Josh. They're an intriguing watch this year, the Tigers. I still had them, for what it's worth, going into the season as going back up the ladder quite significantly. On what they showed in round one, you have pause for concern over that. I also have another theory. Wait till round 8 before you make your sweeping statements on the year unfolding. So, I'm really intrigued as to what happens between now and that early-ish stage of the season, because we'll know by then, and they've got a lot of work to do and a lot of players they're going to need to get back into form and even back into relevance.
So many storylines at Tigerland right now, but let's just drill down on Dion Prestia for a second, because we've got to think about the past 2 years, Damo. He's played 9 games last year. He played 9 games in 2020. Yes, he got back for that grand final, but when you think he only played 9 games that year, it's not a significant amount of football. He's only played more than 13 games twice in his 5 years at Richmond, and now he's facing another month on the sideline with another hamstring issue. It's a great concern because they gave up a lot to get him, and yes, he's delivered 3 premierships. He's been a sensational servant, but at 29, these issues are a bad time to be happening with a body like that.
And you mentioned 4 weeks, and that's what every single club says as an outside, no matter who's sustaining the hamstring injury. For him, at the start of 22, with the history you've just outlined, it's not a 4-week injury. I'd imagine it's an 8 or 9 week rehab, and if they don't do it that way, he'll go down again. We know that with him. So even in his first season, they had to manage him through some injury concerns, and you're so right. I mean, every time he's got back to those key finals, he just steps up and performs. How it looks so without him, I mean, they've been thinking about this for some time, and it's why, Josh, and you're in this space far better than anyone else in the media. Tell me why Collier-Dawkins isn't being used in a round 1 of this 2022 season after what I thought he showed enough last year to be part of what they're doing in the future. Do they need to pitchfork him back in and just say, just go for it? You've got a month of footy to prove to us you're deserving of a place in the starting midfield.
It's a question a lot of Richmond supporters are asking because they paid a high price for Riley Collier-Dawkins at the draft a few years ago, and he hasn't played a lot of senior football yet, and they thought this is the year where we're going to see him stamp himself and come onto the scene. So it's definitely something that's a question mark right now, and match committee will be considering him. I mean, he showed quite a bit across the pre-season. He's one of their best trainers, and I know a lot of players train well between December, January and February, and we get to March and we get to round 1 selection, and there are question marks on players' progress, and he's definitely one of them. So he's one to keep an eye out, that's for sure. The frustration, just before we move off Dion Prestia, is around the hamstring. He's doing it in different ways. He's doing it high, he's doing it low, he's doing it in the belly. So there's frustration inside Tigerland because they can't get on top of it. But what does it mean for Trent Cotchin, Damo? Because some people now question, has he gone on too far? And you mentioned 8 weeks. Give people a strong sample size in this year before making a harsh judgment. But early on, it looks like Trent Cotchin might have gone on 1 year too far.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to do that. If you recall Glenn Archer's last year at North Melbourne, it went on for I'd say 5 or 6 weeks, maybe even 7. He's gone, and then he did what Glenn Archer had always done to his career. Somehow got it back and was a key player. So you don't write the all-time greats off after one game. But what he's going to have to do, Josh, and this is the mindset which he's been so good at applying to how he has impact in a game of footy and a season of footy. They had plans for 2022, which had Prestia inside that midfield operations. They now don't have him. Look, it might be for a third of a season. It might be longer. If they are to play at a certain path on the rehab, he's going to have to change his own mindset, as Damien Hardwick is, on how he's used. I mean, you need to phase those great players out, but when you start losing your other main players in that part of the ground, as they've now done with Prestia, you're going to have to inject him back into there in a meaningful and significant way. And maybe it is just a bit of old school. Hey, I'm nearly gone here, but in age and stage, but I'm going to lead this club yet again to get us back to a point where when Prestia comes back in, we're going to be okay. So maybe in that regard, it might actually force Cotchin to come out of this little phasing out period or zone that he appears to be in.
Now, Damo, many pundits around the competition predicted Richmond to spike and return from 12th back into premiership contention. Are you still bullish about the Tigers?
I am. I mean, the way Carlton beat them in round one was certainly an impactful part of what we saw in those opening 9 matches of the season. But there were patches of the game where, it was the old Tigers and they did slow things down. And as we know, in a game of footy, which is played in that way in a round one environment, they can often go either way, the game. So I don't think you'd be too disappointed in that overall big picture if you were a Tigers. Of course, they wanted the premiership points, and of course, they don't like being 0-1, but I'm not making any sweeping statements on what I saw there. Carlton got some rubs of the green, and that's not at all playing down what they did. They deserved their win. But yeah, there were some things in that game of footy that could have gone the Tigers' way. The discipline part of it, Josh, and I think this is a key part of this overall Richmond conversation. That to me was arguably the most disappointing aspect of it. That they almost gave the appearance and impression at times, and I'm only talking at times of being the old almost privileged outfit, and we're almost above needing to toe the line on umpire abuse, and we don't need to toe the line on these other things that other clubs are doing. They need to snap out of that. They need to just wipe the slate and forget the 3 flags they've got in 17, 19 and 20, realise that they're coming off a 21 season that only had them having 9 wins out of the 22 matches, and realise that they're just outside the best teams in it. They've got the ability to get through it. Whether they've got the bodies, though, to do it, that's the question, and the minds, because, I mean, Tom Lynch is a worry. We touched on the injury to Jack Riewoldt. We've already touched on the ageing Trent Cotchin. Yeah, there's issues, and we can talk about it for hours and not have the answers, because it's only going to be the next game when they present the next bit of real evidence to assess them on.
Damo, we could talk about Richmond all morning, but we've got to move on.